So I'm going to give a very brief introduction to the spiritual vision, context and philosophy of the Awaken Life Project. And not only the Awaken Life Project, but many different progressive initiatives that are happening in different places around the world right now. So we see ourselves as part of a growing international movement that is inspired by the vision of Iluminação Evolutionary, or evolutionary enlightenment. Or if you want to think of that more broadly, evolutionary spirituality. Okay? So, first of all, in the video about our project, and as Cynthia was speaking, you heard us using this word ego. So I just want to clarify what we mean by that word, because many people mean different things. They don't always necessarily agree. So we mean something quite specific by the word ego. An acronym that I like to describe it, EGO in English, it means edging God out. Okay, so edging means pushing away to the edge. So the ego is the part of us that wants to push God out of the picture and say, no, what about me? I'm important. So by God, what I mean is not an old man up in the sky with a beard who's looking after us all and controlling everything. God, or spirit, is who we really are. That's our true nature. That's what the great mystics, whether it was Jesus Christ, whether it was the Buddha, mystics over the last 50, 100 years, in many different ways, in many different languages, in many different traditions, they're all basically telling us the same thing, aren't they? They're all basically telling us, hey everybody, wake up. Because the truth is that the ego, the separate, isolated ego, is not really who we are. It's not really it's not really who we are. It's not the deepest truth of who we are. So when we use the word ego, we don't mean your individuality. We don't mean your personality. There's nothing wrong with your individuality or your personality. We all need that, right? We're all many flowers in the field here, many different expressions of life. So the ego doesn't mean your individuality in this context. It means the part of you, the part of me, the part of all of us that insists on separation and limitation. Right? Separation and limitation. So separation is very clear, very obvious. That basically means that we believe, we're convinced that I, Pete, I am separate from all of you and the whole world and the whole universe. So I need to protect myself. I need to get what I can for me. I need to protect myself. Life is dangerous. Life cannot be trusted. And usually most other people cannot be trusted. Right? The ego is basically built on a very deep primal fear. It's a fear of letting go. Fear of trusting in a mystery beyond what we can know and understand with our minds. So the ego is very much about separation. It's also about limitation. So all of the ideas we have about ourselves, this is both personally, psychologically, but also as a culture. Right? We're in Portugal here. Every culture has its own conditioning, its own mindset, its own narratives about what's good and what's bad, what's valuable, what's not valuable. And there's all kinds of conditioning, both psychological and cultural, that inhibits us from being fully ourselves, being free, being happy, being ever new. Okay? So that's really what we mean by ego. It's those forces in all of us, and they exist in all of us, that are keeping us down. Right? So from our understanding, and this is the understanding I think of many more and more people these days, our current crises, right, the big crises that we're all in the midst of, economic, financial, ecological, climate crisis, the bees are dying, there's all kinds of crises that are all converging in our time. What is the root cause of all these crises? Is it the government? Is it the bankers? Is it the oil companies? So really, we start to enter into a more spiritual inquiry and perspective when we start to recognize, well, the cause of the crisis is right here. It's a crisis of consciousness. So the reason, the root cause of all our problems, whether it's global, cultural, or just interpersonal between people in our family or friends, is the ego. So the ego is the part of us that creates conflict and thrives on conflict and needs to be in competition with the other. Okay? So, would you all agree with that as a simple definition? So, in that context, if we look at humanity today, where we are, what we're doing, here we are at the Alternative Fair, so we're all people that are concerned about life, and we care about life, and I think we all care about improving things and being demonstrating a higher and deeper possibility. So if we're all people that care about life, then it's really up to us to demonstrate and discover a pathway that makes sense in terms of our human evolution. So that's really our shared vision at the Awaken Life Project, is we have to be the ones to demonstrate what's possible. Or as Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. I think we're all very good at seeing all the changes we want to see out there, the government, the banks, that's easy. But what about the change here? How selfish are we? How courageous are we? How addicted to comfort and security are we? How afraid or not of the unknown are we? You see, this is really what it means to evolve, to spiritually awaken. So, evolutionary enlightenment, well, let me just define what this means. So, enlightenment, the word enlightenment, historically, what it basically means is consciousness beyond ego. Okay, it's a very simple definition. Consciousness beyond ego. So it's when you and I discover, we have the recognition. It could just be a little vislumbre, a glimpse, or maybe an opening that lasts for a longer period. But it's when you start to see, feel, and recognize that who I am, who I really am, is not this historical identity called Pete, called Anna, called Maria, called Alvaro, whoever it is. That's part of who I am. That's relatively a part of who I am. This body was born at a certain time. I've had a certain stream of experiences in life that are different from yours. I'm from England, you're from Portugal. We have all these differences. But it's when we recognize that at the deepest level, who we all really are is consciousness, or spirit, or God. Whichever word you feel most comfortable with. Personally, I feel most comfortable with consciousness. That's probably because I was brought up a Catholic. So when I hear the word God, I always think of the man up there. But in the context of enlightenment, we recognize that there is no God out there separate from in here. So enlightenment means the recognition of oneness, of non-duality, that there is only one. There is only one. So God out there and God in here is ultimately one. Okay? That's a big revelation. That can shock us, like, whoa. Is that really true? And what are the implications if that is really true? So people who traditionally, who've been seekers of enlightenment, they wanted to discover this state of consciousness, this higher and deeper state of consciousness, where one lives in the ongoing knowledge, understanding, recognition that who I am is non-separate from the whole. So even though there's many beings here, right, the consciousness that is looking out through my eyes and is looking out through your eyes, that's one. There's only one consciousness there. It's only when I identify with my mind and I say, no, but I'm Pete, I'm over here, I'm this way and they're that way. You see? It's when I identify with my personal ego, then I feel separate from you. We feel separate from each other. But you see, if we're willing to question and even maybe to let go of a lot of these ideas, conclusions, conditionings that our parents and our teachers and our religions or whatever have taught us, we actually start to see, wow, actually who I am is not just limited to this physical form. It embraces everything. So that's traditionally what is meant by enlightenment. That's a very brief introduction. But what it means to really understand that and discover it is quite a profound process of introspection, meditation, and inquiry. Okay? So in the model here, that's what the Buddha symbolizes. You see the Buddha figure, Abhastasir or Io Absoluto. So that's the ground of being in English, the self-absolute. What that represents is the discovery of freedom. That who I really am in the deepest place is already full, already complete, is already free, is already one with everything that is. So how do we discover that? The most direct way to discover that is through meditation. That's why the Buddha was sitting in a meditation posture, and that's why many of the great mystics throughout history, right up to the present day, one of the things they're all teaching, in different forms, is meditation. Why is meditation so important? Because meditation is not about doing anything. So everything else we do in life, we're doing. Right? Busy. So meditation is actually when we make the choice to stop and simply be. And not just to sit and simply be and then worry about all our problems and think about the future and try and fix all our relationships. It's to simply be and let go of everything. Let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of all of our problems, which means letting go of the mind. So in meditation we endeavour through intention and practice to let go of our mind, our compulsive identification with our mind. Okay? Because normally we're living like this. This is the mind. Right? These are all my thoughts and ideas. And normally they're like this. And then you see people through your thoughts and ideas. Oh, hello, how are you? You see? We're living in a world created by thought. And so when we start to meditate, we start to gain more space. And we start to see that everything we think and everything we feel doesn't necessarily mean anything about me. I am not my mind. I am not my emotions. The mind is a tool, a beautiful, sophisticated tool, a gift of evolution. And obviously our emotions and our feelings, we have these for a reason. They help us navigate, help us journey through life. So our mind and our feelings, our emotions, they're all part of who we are. They're all part of the human condition. But they're not the whole picture. And if we have no awareness or understanding of the spiritual dimension of who we are, then basically we're a prisoner of our mind and emotions. So I feel good, life is good. I feel bad, Stor and Denver. You see what I mean? Because that's all that I am, is my thoughts and emotions. But if you start to realize, no, well, who I am is the self-absolute. Who I am is pure being, pure consciousness. Then, maybe we're having a good day, maybe we're having a bad day, but we have more freedom. We have more freedom to choose who we want to be. Okay? There's more freedom, there's more space, and there's a lot more joy. A lot more joy and happiness. So where are we going to find perfect happiness? Here and now. Thank you. We're never going to find perfect happiness by having the BMW, the nice house, the perfect job, all the things our society tells me that we need to be happy. And we're also never going to find it in the perfect man or the perfect woman. Sorry to disappoint you, but they don't exist. Perfect man or perfect woman, it's just an illusion, you see. We might think we've found them, but after a few months, especially when we start living together, we realise, oh, she's not perfect. So a big part of our suffering and pain, is caused by the fact we're looking for happiness in all the wrong places. We're looking for happiness, freedom, joy, by getting what we want. But as the Buddha said, everything changes. So even if you get what you want, it's all going to change and disintegrate eventually anyway. So when we actually discover this grounded being of Ashtasir, we actually discover a source of fundamental peace and joy and completion that's already there. And then we're free from wanting and needing anything from other people or from the outside to be happy. Does that sound good?
It does.
It's possible. And then you're able to love, you're able to love other people, you're able to create with other people, work with other people. And yeah, you might enjoy buying this and that, it doesn't mean you become a monk. But your freedom, your happiness is not dependent on all of that. So you can really love, you see. Because what is love often about? It's about getting something, for me. It's not true love. So that's what enlightenment means, right? That I give you a sense of it. It means the discovery of deep inner peace and joy and a fundamental happiness. And in that fundamental happiness, peace and joy, we recognize that life is good. As you say in Portugal, tudo bem. That's what I love about that phrase. How you doing? Tudo bem? Because it's true. Life is actually deeply good. Despite all of the terrible, crazy, chaotic things that are happening. The nature, the fundamental nature of life and being alive is good. But you have to discover that for yourself. If and when you do discover it, you'll be a happy person. You'll be a free person. But in evolutionary enlightenment, that's not the end. So in many teachings of spirituality and enlightenment, what I just described is the goal. That's kind of where we want to end up. It's like we discover this deep inner peace, freedom, joy. I'm free. I'm happy. Life is good. It's all over. Now I'm fundamentally free from all of the endless fears and desires of my psychological ego. But in the context of evolutionary enlightenment, that's the beginning. What I just described is the beginning for a whole new possibility for human beings and for human life. Does that sound exciting?
Yes.
Because you see, if enlightenment is the end, I don't think that's enough to transform the world we're living in. I don't think that's enough to meet the challenge, the enormous challenge of our time. Because what is our moment in history calling for? It's calling for our participation. It's not calling for us to only go and sit on the top of a mountain and meditate, although that's a very good thing to do occasionally. It's calling for our participation. We are needed. We are needed. Humanity needs to evolve, and we need to engage with life. Not just discover a freedom from life and freedom from the world. We need to engage with life, embrace the world, transform the world. Right? How do we do that? Through transforming ourselves. And then through transforming ourselves, we start transforming our relationships. And then through transforming our relationships, we create a culture that transcends the ego. And then through doing that, we can actually work together creatively to in a small but significant way, change this world. We all have a role to play in that. So every one of us is here. I believe that we all chose to be here. And we're all here to learn something, and you could say to give something. We all have something that to be shared and to be given. So the evolutionary dimension of this, so you see that line coming out there, o impulso evolutivo? What that symbolizes is the creative impulse, the evolutionary impulse, which is the energy and intelligence that created the universe and is driving the universe. Okay? So, as far as we know, as far as science has discovered, something came from nothing. So 14 billion years ago, there was an explosion called the Big Bang. That's what we now call it. And in the beginning, there was just hydrogen gas. And now, 14 billion years later, here we are, having a conversation about it. How did that happen? So scientific materialists will try and convince us that it's all a complete random accident. It's just a complete cosmic accident that we're even here and that we're conscious and we've even become aware of the Big Bang. It's like that's completely meaningless. But actually there's more and more evidence to suggest that that's not true. And many scientists and cosmologists are recognizing that the more we learn about the universe, the more we see there's a tremendous intelligence at work here. There's divine intelligence at work in the whole process. A divine creative intelligence. So what we call the evolutionary impulse is that creative spark, the Big Bang, right here, right now. Not just 14 billion years ago. It's still happening. It's still going. So how do we recognize that in the human experience? The Big Bang, or the evolutionary impulse. There's basically 3 different levels. I'm going to go through them very quick. You can recognize this in yourself. So the first level is common to all sentient beings. And that's the sexual impulse. Right? So the sexual impulse, a very powerful impulse, right? That's the Big Bang going off inside your body. Right? On the level of our biology. And of course the agenda is to procreate. To keep the show going here. Right? So what is the nature of that impulse? Just when we look at the sexual impulse in and of itself, what is the nature of it? It's ecstatic, right? Do you know what the word ecstatic means? Urgency. Now. Right? It's this, just in terms of the impulse says there's something very urgent about it. That's why it's a challenge for human beings often to deal with it, or know how to deal with it. Because the raw biological impulse is saying, I want to procreate now. It's driving. Right? So for some people it's more than others, but it's a very powerful impulse. So, as I said, all sentient beings experience this impulse. It's not special to us. The next level, at least on this planet, is unique to human beings. And that is the passion for innovation and creativity. So what makes us as human beings different from chimpanzees or the animals is we've developed this incredible self-consciousness, but also this passion to create, to innovate, to make things better. So whether you're looking at literature, poetry, art, politics, civilization, every realm of human endeavour, you can see throughout history there is something driving us all forward to make it better. Now, we're not always succeeding. Yeah? Often we're actually going backwards. But in the human race, you can see there's something that's kind of restless, that wants to create, that wants to bring into being what's never existed before. Okay? So, for example, great artists, great musicians, great poets, great dancers, for example, when they let go into their art, they often express something beautiful and transcendent that's very moving. Because we recognize it's God, if you like, the Spirit, coming through that art, that expression. So our creativity can be a vehicle for higher expression and emergence. But when we take that to the next level, to the third level, is when we want our whole life, who we are and how we live and what we do, to become an expression of this evolutionary creative impulse. Right? So that includes, obviously, the sexual dimension, the artistic, the passion for creativity and innovation. But it's not just those dimensions. It's actually when we start to see ourselves and experience ourselves as evolution in action, as the intelligence, the energy that created the universe, is creating the universe in action. So your passion to create a better world, your passion to change, That part of you that knows that so much more is possible. That's the evolutionary impulse. That is not your ego. That is not a personal desire. That's a universal desire. That is the universe, which means one song, universe. That is the one song that wants to sing through all of us. You see? So this evolutionary impulse is one. Just as the ground of being, the self-absolute, is one. And these two are two sides of one coin. So if you think of the mystery, the ultimate mystery of life, the oneness, the unity of life is one. We can understand it as being a coin, moeda, that has two sides. So on one side we have pure being, ser, which is when we discover who we are, free from time, history, thought, problems. That's the enlightenment of the Buddha, for example. Be here now. The power of now. Right here, it's right now. You can just relax into that at any moment. It's always present. So that's one side of the coin. But then, when we begin to engage with life, when we give ourselves to our passion to create a better world, to be a more inspiring human example, then the coin flips over and we line up with the evolutionary impulse. And you see, the evolutionary impulse doesn't just want to sit in peace and bliss and meditation. It wants to engage with life. It wants to create new relationships. It wants to work together with other human beings. It wants to show the way forward, dare I say, for the rest of the human race. Because if it's true, there is only one, who believes that's true? You have to discover it for yourself. If it's just an idea or a concept, it's not deep enough. If you discover that you're convinced that that's true, then you have a very big responsibility in your life. Because if there is only one, that's who you are. That's who I am, that's who you are. We are all that one. So the evolution of the human race depends on you. Me. You can't wait for anybody else. You can't blame it on anybody else. You can't just complain about the government and eat this life. It's up to me. So that's a very big responsibility. The ego, by the way, is not interested in that at all. Because that's going to mess with your life. But your authentic self, right? Your true soul says a big yes to that. Because that's freedom, that's no limitation, and that's the creative fulfillment of your individuality as an expression of the Big Bang right here, right now. So, look at that, I did it. So there's a brief introduction. Obviously there's a lot more subtlety and complexity that I don't have time to share. But that's a brief introduction to evolutionary enlightenment, evolutionary spirituality. I want you to appreciate that this is actually quite new. It's actually very new. Because in the time of the Buddha, for example, you have to appreciate that evolution, the discovery of evolution, is very recent. The discovery that we are part of a process that is going somewhere, that this whole creative process is going somewhere, has some kind of direction, is very recent. In the traditional religions and traditional spirituality, this was not understood. Mainly they felt that life was just going round and round. There was no meaning or purpose to it. So spiritual freedom in these in that context was really about an inner journey of transcendence, freedom from the world. That's why people became monks or nuns or renounced the world. You see? But now we're understanding that's only half the picture. The world, the created universe, is God in form. This is all spirit. This is all spirit. This is all divine. You see?